Benjamin saw the smirk before the lie left the cop's mouth. Not a twitch, not a flicker. Just that slow, contemptuous curl of lips, a practiced expression that always came just before the story changed. He'd seen that smirk in Baghdad, in briefs, in boardrooms, in barracks, and now, here it was, under fluorescent courtroom lights in a sleepy Texas town, painted across the face of a man who had no idea who was sitting 15 feet away. You're not supposed to be here, are you? That's the feeling crawling up your spine right now. Like you walked into a room, mid-conversation, and everyone went silent. Like this video, this story isn't meant to exist, but it does, and you're watching it unfold in real time. You think it's just about a courtroom lie, a bad cop, a forgotten woman in cuffs. But listen carefully. Something is wrong here. Something you can't unsee. The officer raised his hand to swear the oath, eyes scanning the benches lazily, stopping briefly, too briefly, on the woman with calloused fingers and flat shoes, her hair tied back in a civilian bun. He didn't recognize her. Or maybe he did, but counted on her silence. That was his first mistake. Her name was Aurora. No rank, no ribbons, no salute. On paper, she worked at a veterans outreach center, lived alone, took the bus, talked to no one. But 5 years ago, her hands had killed in 6 countries, 3 different languages, 2 continents, 1 order, erased the threat. She'd disappeared after her final mission on purpose. And now, the man lying under oath about her was standing directly over a crack in the world he didn't know existed. The courtroom was packed, but still felt hollow. Air too still. Phones on silent, but a buzz in the walls. Like static, waiting to speak. The judge asked for the officer's account. The lie came like a script. She resisted arrest, kicked me in the ribs, screamed something about killing us all. She wasn't stable. The room shifted. You didn't notice it at first. No one did. But that's when the file opened asterisk. The file, no one was ever supposed to see asterisk dot behind Aurora. A child too young to be there, whispered a name no one had spoken, a name that didn't exist on any file, transcript, or record, a name burned off documents, a call sign. The child didn't blink, didn't repeat it, just looked at her like she already knew the ending. Aurora stood slowly, not rushed, not angry, just still. In her hand was a plain folder, unmarked, unlabeled, but you could feel it weighed more than paper should. The bailiff's hand drifted to his holster. Too late, because Aurora said 5 words. 5 quiet, surgical words. And then the courtroom. Lights cut out. When they flickered back on, the officer was gone. No one moved. No one screamed. He was just not there. Like he'd never existed. But Aurora was still standing, holding the same folder. And when she looked into the camera, the one capturing this, the one now feeding into your screen, you'll swear, she saw you, and you were never supposed to be seen. There's one question no one ever dared ask. In open court, what if the woman in handcuffs, asterisk, outranks every single man in the building, asterisk, and if you think the lie ended here, you haven't seen what's in the folder. The lights came back on, but the color had drained from the room. No screams, no running, not even a gasp. Just that sticky, electric silence, the kind that lives in interrogation rooms after someone's confessed to a murder they don't remember committing. The cop was gone, vanished, but the stain of him remained. His breath, his lie. His lie. You'd think someone would have said something, that the judge would bang her gavel, that a clerk would fumble for a phone. But instead, everyone sat perfectly still, like they'd all just been slapped awake in a dream they hadn't realized they were having. And Aurora, she didn't move, didn't blink. Her hand still rested on that manila folder, fingers barely curled over the edge, like she wasn't quite ready to let the truth slip out. Or maybe the folder was holding her in place, tethering her to this moment, keeping something inside that should never have surfaced. The footage, the actual courtroom feed, cut out seconds later, not just the lights flickering. A hard break, the digital timestamp froze mid-number. 17 minutes of static followed. Then, without warning, the stream resumed as if nothing had happened. The officer was never seen again. The transcript showed no gaps, no record of Aurora speaking, no folder, no child. Just case adjourned, defendant released. You're probably already thinking the same thing Benjamin did when he tried to watch the footage again the next day. This isn't real. But here's the part that twists your spine. Benjamin was in the room. He remembers the cop, remembers the lights, remembers the silence like a scream lodged in his throat. He remembers the child whispering the call sign. He remembers asterisk Aurora, seeing him asterisk, but the video disagrees. The court record disagrees. The people disagree. Nothing like that happened. Man, the clerk said. You sick or something? You didn't even show up for the hearing. But hell, he didn't. He still had the security badge in his pocket, still had the email reminding him to attend as a witness, still had the cough drop wrapper the woman in front of him handed back after her kid sneezed into her lap. But no one else remembered him there, and Benjamin, well, he didn't sleep after that. He started watching the footage on a loop, desperate for a flicker, a whisper, something to prove what he saw. something to explain the cold that crept into his bones whenever Aurora's eyes met the lens. But every frame had been scrubbed clean, sanitized, like the truth had been too ugly to preserve, and the system hit delete before the rot could spread. He thought he was losing it, until he started hearing the tape, not the courtroom one, other one. It started while he was washing dishes, hands elbowed deep in suds. The cheap clock radio in the kitchen, the one he never used, sparked to life with a loud hiss, and then, a voice. Soft, unfiltered, crackling like it had been buried in snow. Do you remember what they made you forget? Benjamin spun around, water dripping from his fingers, eyes wide. Nothing, just static, until the voice returned. Louder this time, almost angry. You stood by while they erased her. The plate in his hand shattered in the sink. The radio went dead. He tried to pull the plug, but it wasn't even plugged in. That's when he called her, Grace, the only other person who might remember. Not because she was in the courtroom, but because she had a memory like a bear trap and a closet full of documents she wasn't supposed to keep. Grace Pickett was a former Navy trauma nurse. Quiet, lived off-grid most years. Only came back into the city when the weather got too cruel or the Veterans Hospital sent her an impossible case. She used to be Aurora's friend, or handler, or shadow. The details don't add up. They never have. She answered the phone before it rang twice. You saw her, didn't you? Grace said, her voice already cracking. Benjamin paused. Do you remember? I remember too much. I remember things that aren't mine. That's when the line dropped. Not cut, dropped. Like someone hung up inside his house. From then on, things began to slip. Voicemails that disappeared seconds after being played. Messages from Grace that read they're watching. Stop digging. Followed by entire conversations she swore never happened. The walls in his apartment felt thinner. The mirrors slower. One night, he caught his reflection, blinking after he'd already turned away. Sleep offered no relief. When it came, it brought dreams of cold steel corridors and red lights pulsing in rhythm with his own heartbeat. Of a woman screaming his name from behind a glass wall that wouldn't break. Of a child's voice whispering the word reclaimed in his ear just before waking. He found himself walking without knowing where he was going. Following sounds no one else heard. At a gas station, a pump printed out a receipt with the words, "You testified against her." And no total. But here's the part that no one believes, because here's where the second character enters. A man named Reese. Tall, calm/white button-down shirt tucked into perfectly creased slacks. He approached Benjamin like they were old friends, though Ben was sure they'd never met. You're remembering out of order, Reese said with a warm smile. That's why it hurts. That's why it doesn't fit. Do I know you? Everyone does. Eventually he didn't explain further. Just handed Benjamin a cassette tape. No label, no markings. Play it in a quiet room. Somewhere dark. Somewhere honest. Then Reese walked away. Benjamin never saw him again. The tape, when played, contained a recording of a therapy session. Except it was Benjamin's voice. Talking about things he never remembered doing. Talking about a unit that doesn't exist. A program with no name. About watching a woman be dragged from a body bag into a soundproof room. He was crying out. I didn't know they could still move after that. The recording said. Static followed. Then Aurora's voice. Clear. Steady. Benjamin, you helped. Erase me. The tape ended. Accepted DIDN single quotes T. The next morning it started playing on its own. Every time he got near it. Even after he took the batteries out of the player. Even after he burned it. The next week he started forgetting things, basic things. His address, his sister's birthday, whether his mother was alive. One night he went to pull up his own email and found no record of his account ever existing. He wasn't just being haunted, he was being deleted. And somewhere beneath it all, something darker stirred. A pattern, a plan, a program meant to remove people like Aurora from the record. Not just their careers, their names, but their entire existence. Memory as a weapon. Forgetting as a tactic. And it was working. Benjamin tried contacting Grace again, but her line had been disconnected. Her trailer was abandoned. Her files, shredded and soaked. In the middle of the floor, written in what looked like engine oil, they won't erase her again. It wasn't a warning. It was a promise. And then, that night, in the last voicemail Benjamin ever received, Grace's voice came through one last time, frantic whispering. Check your blood, Benjamin. It's not yours anymore. Then static. Then a voice, not hers. Recalibration. Complete. There's a truth buried beneath this story. One that smells like concrete and copper. One they don't want you to remember. You think this is a story about a courtroom and a lie, about a woman in uniform and a man with a badge. But that was just the beginning. The real question isn't who lied, it's who forgot, and why. Because if Benjamin's memories aren't his, what if yours aren't either? And the next time you hear a name you swear you've never spoken, check the room. Make sure no one's watching. Make sure you're still real, because the next time the lights flicker, it won't be Aurora who disappears. It'll be you. The false calm came exactly 3 days after Benjamin stopped sleeping. His body gave in. Finally, not out of rest but exhaustion, he collapsed on the floor of a basement he didn't remember entering, surrounded by manila folders that smelled like mildew and copper. They weren't his, they had no markings, and yet he knew, somehow, that they were about him. His name didn't appear once inside, but the case photos showed his back, his shadow, his hands, always blurred, always peripheral. One photo then the rest caught his face in a store reflection. Mouth open mid-sentence, eyes locked on a woman walking past. Aurora, but she wasn't wearing civilian clothes in that image. She was in uniform, dress whites, no insignia. And the reflection, it wasn't recent. The timestamp somehow burned into the bottom corner like it had been seared there by heat. Read July 16, 1997. Benjamin was in middle school. In 1997, or at least, that's what he remembered. The folders had come in waves, appearing in new places every time he tried to discard them. Leave them in dumpsters, and they'd reappear on his kitchen counter. Burn them, and ashes would drift down inside his mailbox the next morning. Still warm, they weren't trying to be found. They were trying to stay. That was when he started noticing it the way his phone always buzzed when he was close to an answer. Not a call, just a feeling. A phantom vibration, always when he was within reach of clarity. A glitch in the memory. It was around then that Reese returned, not in person, but on his laptop, which had been dead for 2 weeks. It flickered on by itself, screen filling with lines of white code, then settling on a single grainy video. It looked like security footage from a hospital time stomp blurred, sound crackling under heavy compression. The camera faced a hallway lined with patient rooms. A figure slumped barefoot, hair matted, stumbled into frame. Benjamin squinted. It was him. At least it looked like him. Older, tired. A hospital gown tied loosely around the waist. His hands trembled as he reached for the nearest door. But before he could open it, someone stepped into frame behind him. Aurora. Only, it wasn't the Aurora he remembered. This one looked smoother. Her movements were mechanical, precise. Her eyes, too alert, too still. She reached forward and gently placed her hand on Benjamin's shoulder. The video glitched, jumped, sound distorted. For one frame, Benjamin's face, twisted pain, fear, something unnatural. Then static, then black. Underneath the video was a line of text, asterisk, asterisk, you already solved it. That's why they started deleting you. Asterisk, asterisk, Benjamin didn't move for an hour, just sat there, letting the words decay in his mind, like rot under floorboards. But that one line, made something click. He'd already solved it. That night, he drove for hours to a federal storage facility where Grace once told him she used to treat experimental trauma patients from closed military units off the books. The facility had burned down years ago, but Benjamin remembered the exit. The ash still hung thick in the soil. In the ruins, buried beneath layers of soot and moss, he found the only thing that hadn't burned, a steel medical file cabinet welded shut. He pried it open with a crowbar and broken knuckles. Inside, soaked in humidity, were dozens of black binders, no labels, no stamps. But one of them at the very bottom had something etched into the inside flap. Not ink, asterisk scratched in with a blade, asterisk, 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 don't believe her, she remembers you too well. Asterisk, asterisk, the pages inside weren't written in standard type. They were transcripts, verbatim recordings of patient interviews conducted in a classified memory reconstruction program. Benjamin didn't recognize the name of the operation. It had been blacked out on every page. But he did recognize the voice of the patient, his own. He was reading conversations he had no memory of having. Questions like, asterisk, asterisk, do you remember the room with the 2 doors? Asterisk, 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 when she stepped in. Did you choose to forget, or were you made to? Asterisk, 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 what happened after the 3rd detonation? Asterisk, asterisk, somewhere between the pages. The tension began to build, not from what was said, but from what wasn't. Sentences would trail off halfway, words scratched out. One page ended abruptly with the words. Asterisk, asterisk, patient began speaking in a voice not registered as human. Another, simply read, memory loop achieved, monitor for bleed through. Asterisk, asterisk, this was it, the truth, the proof. He had been part of something, a test, a program, a pattern of erasure. The memory glitches, the missing records, the strange familiarity all made sense now. Aurora wasn't some rogue witness. She was the key, the buried variable. She hadn't disappeared, she had been preserved. So, Benjamin did what anyone would in his position. He tried to go public. He uploaded the files, emailed reporters, messaged old friends in the Navy who owed him favors. For a moment, it felt like the tension lifted, like air returned to his lungs, like clarity was possible. But the very next morning, the footage changed. The original courtroom feed, the one with the officer vanishing, was no longer gone. It now played straight through, uninterrupted. The cop never vanished. Aurora never stood. There was no folder, no child. The only oddity was Benjamin now, clearly visible in the gallery, fidgeting, sweating. his eyes darting to corners of the room where nothing was happening. He looked crazy, even he didn't recognize himself in the footage. The reporters never responded, the documents he uploaded vanished from the cloud. Every email he sent bounced back as undeliverable. He called one of his Navy contacts, a woman he knew for a decade. She answered, polite but confused. Ben, I thought you were… Wait, how did you get this number? You're not supposed to. Never mind. This line's not secure. Don't call again. Then silence. The folders were gone from his apartment. The tape melted into plastic, and a note handwritten in ink he didn't own was left on his bathroom mirror. Asterisk, asterisk, you're safe now. Stop pulling. But Benjamin couldn't stop. He felt it now. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't delusion. This was leakage. The dam cracking. The false resolution dissolving like sugar in acid. Because that night, he dreamed of Charlene, and that's when everything fell apart. Charlene was a neighbor from his childhood, a girl who disappeared when they were both 8 years old. Benjamin had almost entirely forgotten her. But in the dream, she was standing at the red door of his childhood basement, whispering, asterisk, don't let them put the mask on again. Asterisk, that same red door appeared in a classified image buried in one of the binders from the burned-out facility. It wasn't a dream. Charlene was real, and her disappearance had never been solved. The official story said she moved with family, but that door, that exact door, was burned into his memory. She had gone into that basement the day she vanished. He'd watched her. He remembered it now. She had whispered a strange word before stepping inside, and Benjamin. He hadn't told anyone, not because he was scared, because they told him not to, and that's when he remembered. Reese, not the Reese from the tape, the first one, from the basement, from asterisk, 1997, asterisk, he had shown up the day Charlene vanished, smiling, calm, white button-down shirt. No one else saw him. He had said, asterisk, you're going to be a good candidate, Benjamin, asterisk, and now decades later, nothing was solved, nothing was real. The danger wasn't Aurora. It wasn't the officer. It wasn't even Benjamin's memory. It was whatever had been watching asterisk before the story began. Whatever made the courtroom vanish asterisk from tape. Whatever rewrote the records that it was always watching. And now, as Benjamin looked into his bathroom mirror, one last time he saw not his reflection, but the back of his own head. And Aurora, standing behind him, whispering, asterisk, reel him in. He thinks it's almost over. Asterisk, the screen went black. The entire story rewound. And now you, watching this, have you noticed the loop? Go back, look again, you missed something. Real something that shouldn't be there. Asterisk, asterisk, and if you saw it, to asterisk, 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 don't say anything. Asterisk, 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 they're already listening. Asterisk, asterisk, it started with the envelope. No return address. No postage. Just sitting on Benjamin's kitchen table like it had always been there. The paper was heavy. Textured military issue, maybe, folded once. Inside, a single Polaroid, slightly curled at the corners, showing a group of 12 people standing in front of a chain-link fence. They weren't smiling. They weren't posing. Their eyes all faced the camera, but none of them seemed aware it was there. And behind the fence, obscured in shadow, stood a figure that didn't quite register as human, just out of focus. Just real enough to be undeniable. Someone had scribbled a note across the bottom edge in black pen. The ink still faintly wet. Asterisk, asterisk, you were right all along. Asterisk, asterisk, Benjamin flipped the photo over. Another line waited there. Not a message. A time, 3:07 a.m. That night, he didn't sleep. At exactly 3:07, every screen in his apartment turned on at once: monitor, phone, cracked tablet, even the microwaves. Digital face. Each one showed the same static-filled image. A hallway lined with mirrors, and in the mirrors, people watching. Not reflections. Not tricks. Viewers. That was the moment he realized. He wasn't alone. This story, his story, wasn't just being watched. It was being shared, echoed, mirrored in rooms across the country, maybe the world. He began to find others not through names or messages, but through patterns. Graffiti symbols that shouldn't match but did. Scratched onto subway walls in New York, carved into wood near a fishing dock in Oregon, burned into desert sand behind a decommissioned hangar in Nevada. They all bore the same iconic spiral of intersecting arrows, forming a closed eye. Moment he saw it, his pulse changed, like something beneath his ribs remembered it. Then came the dreams, shared ones. The first was of a forest. Dense, fog, shrouded, silent. He was running, heart hammering, lungs full of mud. But when he looked down, he wasn't in his own body. His hands were thinner, pale, scarred. A woman's voice echoed from somewhere behind the trees. Asterisk, don't let them scan you. He woke up gasping. Hours later, someone from a block number texted a single phrase. Asterisk, asterisk, you saw the forest too. Asterisk, asterisk, no name, no follow-up. But it was real, too real. From then on, it escalated. A file left under his windshield wiper showing stills from security footage at a classified VA hospital in Colorado, footage showing 5 people. all different races, ages, and builds. Sitting in a waiting room, one of them was unmistakably Benjamin, but he'd never been there. Behind the glass, a doctor stared at them from the other side of the one-way mirror. His badge read, Observer 3, and that's when the voice started. Not in his head, through it, not a hallucination, a presence that felt external, but not unfamiliar. Male maybe neutral.com, like a surgeon, or a liar. You're doing well, keep going. They're watching through you now. The voice called itself the witness. It never answered questions, never offered explanations. It simply surfaced when Benjamin got too close to forgetting, when he started believing he might be insane. But what disturbed him more than the voice was that other people heard it, too. He met the first in a motel outside Flagstaff, a woman named Lena. She worked at a car rental company by day, but her walls were covered in maps, strings, codes. She had hundreds of hours of recovered footage from 1999 to 2005, none of it released, none of it explainable. Most of it had no audio, but a few frames were identical to Benjamin's hallucinations. The basement, the red door, the face in the mirror. She said she'd never met him, but she'd dreamed of him for months. Said he'd warned her once, years ago, inside a dream shaped like a hospital corridor. There's a rot at the core, she whispered, and we're the ones who smelled it first. Lena believed there were at least 19 people across the country who had been used like Benjamin, not experimented on in the traditional sense, but patterned, scrubbed, redirected, reseeded with new identities. Not for espionage, not for black ops, something older. Found footage from 20 years ago showed an early prototype, a child standing in a glass room, repeating government codes and voices that weren't hers. She told Benjamin the truth was in the fractures, not the answers. The cracks between one memory and the next. The overlaps, the glitches, the slip. You ever look at an old photograph and see yourself in the background? She asked, and you swear you weren't there, but your body remembers. He had. In fact, he saw it again last week, on a Reddit thread about paranormal photo anomalies. A crowd shot from a 2001 concert in Austin. Center frame, a teenager, in cargo shorts drinking from a plastic cup, Benjamin, looking straight at the camera. He hadn't lived in Austin. He hadn't been there. He posted a comment, asked the user if it was doctored. 3 minutes later, the thread vanished. His account, deleted. The message inbox, simply read, **** reconstructed too early. Proceed with caution, ****. That's when the stories from others began arriving, encoded in images, layered into music files, whispered over white noise, and voicemail messages with no caller ID. The messages weren't direct. They came like dreams, fragments, familiar shapes, unfinished sentences. But they spoke of shared trauma, memory gaps, identical hallucinations, people remembering events that never happened until they did. They spoke of voices telling them what to ignore. They spoke of feeling watched, tracked, not by people, not by satellites, but by moments that the past itself had begun observing them. One woman wrote, ****, it's like the memories are walking ahead of me, like I'm chasing what I already forgot. ****. Another sent a blurred image of her own handwriting in a journal she doesn't remember keeping. ***, you're not crazy. They lied to you. The first time you forgot wasn't the worst. It was the cleanest. ***, the symbols appeared more frequently. In TV static, in audio dropouts, in GPS errors. Repeating shapes. The eye, the spiral, the number 17, always 17, but a map of a place that didn't exist until it started showing up in old military blueprints, tucked into Google Earth's oldest cached tiles, under the names of facilities that had supposedly been closed for health violations. The place was called Karen 17, and though no one remembered going there, everyone dreamed about it. Benjamin wasn't the only one. They were all part of it, watchers, witnesses, participants in a program that had no name, because its purpose wasn't survival or weaponry. It was containment. Not of people, not of threats, of reality, and through it all, the observer watched. The third perspective, not quite enemy, not quite ally. Their messages came as journal pages from strangers. Newspaper clippings found in library books from the 80s. One message was delivered by a child on a bus, who leaned over and whispered in Benjamin's ear, ***, you're not Benjamin, but you're the closest thing left. ***, what does that mean? He doesn't know, but the symbol was burned into the child's wrist. He wasn't alone. Not anymore. The watchers were real. The witnesses were active. The eye was opening wider every day. And yet one final message arrived last night, delivered through a piece of music, a 4-minute orchestral track found embedded in a corrupted voicemail. When slowed to 0.2 speed and reversed, a voice became audible barely. ***, this is not a warning, this is a retrieval. ***, Benjamin played it once. Then again, on the third play, the apartment lights flickered. The spiral etched itself across the TV screen without command. Then, in the static, a frame of you, sitting exactly where you are right now, watching.